At Thanksgiving dinner, my daughter was told by my family there was no space for her. She was handed her coat like a stranger. Please stay with me as I tell you my story. And please do not forget to support our channel by subscribing, liking, and sharing with your loved ones. We arrived at my childhood home just before dinner. My daughter, 16, had baked a pie the night before. She was so excited. We had spent hours getting ready. It was supposed to be a warm family gathering. I hadn't seen everyone in months. I thought this would be a good time for all of us. But the moment we walked in, I felt something was off. My sister barely looked up. My brother gave a small nod and went back to his phone. Even my mother, who usually hugged us at the door, just said, "Oh, you're here." I tried to shake off the weird feeling. Maybe they were just busy or tired. We took off our coats and walked toward the dining room. That's when it hit me. There were fewer chairs than usual. The table was full. No extra plate. No room left. My mum looked straight at me and said, "We didn't count her this year. Only immediate family." Her voice was cold. She pointed to the coat rack. "She can wait in the living room if you're staying." My daughter just stood there, holding the pie with both hands. She didn't move, didn't speak. Her face fell, and I saw her eyes fill with tears. No one said anything. No one stood up. No one even looked guilty. I took the pie from her and placed it on the table without a word. Then I grabbed her coat, handed it back to her gently, and held her hand. My heart was racing, but I didn't let it show. I turned around and walked out with her without saying goodbye. We didn't cry right away. We sat in the car in silence. The smell of her pie filled the air. I wanted to scream, but I stayed quiet. She finally whispered, "Did I do something wrong?" And I broke inside. That night, we didn't eat dinner. We just held each other on the couch, wrapped in a blanket. I didn't know how to explain cruelty to a child. I only knew I'd never forgive them for making her feel unwanted. Months before Thanksgiving, things still looked normal on the outside. I was helping my sister with her rent, sending money when she said she was short. I watched my niece a few weekends so she could go to work. My brother had borrowed my car twice. My mum called for small favors, rides to appointments, help around the house. I always said yes. I thought that's what family did. Back then, they still asked about my daughter. At least they pretended to. She was always close to them, especially my mother. They used to call her the sunshine of the family. She would draw pictures for my mum, help her bake, laugh with her cousins. She had a place. She belonged. But after my divorce, things changed. Slowly, quietly. It started with silence. A text I sent about her birthday went unanswered. I brushed it off. Then, there was a family BBQ I only found out about from Facebook photos. No one mentioned it. I asked my mum and she said, "Oh, I thought you were busy." She didn't even look sorry. Still, I tried to stay connected. I kept showing up. I thought if I worked harder, they'd remember how close we all used to be. But every time I brought my daughter, something felt colder. Someone would change the subject when she spoke. Her name wasn't mentioned in group chats. Her gifts were forgotten on holidays. It hurt, but I kept pushing it down. I told myself I was imagining things, that they were just distracted or stressed. I didn't want to believe my family was choosing to leave my daughter out. She hadn't done anything. She was just a kid, a kind, gentle kid who looked up to all of them. The final sign came just a week before Thanksgiving. My sister called to ask for help with a bill. I asked her what time dinner would be. She paused and then said, "Oh, we're keeping it small this year, just immediate family." It stung, but I pretended not to hear what she really meant. I sent her the money anyway. Now I look back and realize Thanksgiving wasn't the first betrayal. It was the last in a long line. I just didn't want to see it. I thought love would protect us. But they had been slowly erasing my daughter long before they told her there was no space for her. We got home that night, and neither of us said much. The house felt colder than usual, even with the heat on. My daughter went straight to her room, still wearing her coat. I heard her set the pie down gently on her desk. She didn't come out for dinner. I didn't ask her to. I sat in the kitchen, staring at the empty plates I had planned to bring leftovers home to fill. I reheated something small, but I couldn't eat either. The silence in the house was heavier than anything I'd ever felt. I wanted to knock on her door, to say something that could make this better. But what could I possibly say to fix what they did? The next morning, she barely looked at me. I offered her breakfast, her favorite, but she just shook her head. At school, her teachers started calling me. They said she was quiet, distracted, not herself. She was always a bright, open child. Now, even with friends, she stayed silent. I watched her start to disappear, piece by piece. One night I asked her gently if she wanted to talk. She said, "It's fine, Mom." I get it now. That was all. I didn't know what hurt more, her sadness, or the fact that she was trying to protect me from it. I didn't sleep that night. I sat down and wrote an email to my mother. I didn't accuse or yell. I just asked why. I asked how they could leave out someone who had only ever loved them. I asked if they truly understood what they'd done to a child who once saw them as her whole world. There was no answer. Not that day, not the next, not ever. I waited, thinking maybe she'd call, maybe she'd try to explain, but silence said more than any excuse could. They hadn't forgotten her. They had decided she didn't matter anymore, and I finally saw the truth I hadn't been able to admit. This wasn't a misunderstanding. It wasn't poor planning. It wasn't about space at the table. It was a choice. A line drawn, with my daughter left on the outside. That realization cut deep. They hadn't just hurt her. They had shown me who they really were. And once I saw it, I couldn't unsee it. There was no going back. A few days later, I was cleaning the hallway closet when I found an old photo album. The cover was worn, the pages slightly bent. I sat on the floor and opened it, not expecting the ache that followed. Photo after photo showed my daughter smiling beside her cousins, her small arms around my mother's waist, flour on her cheeks from baking with my sister. There were birthdays, holiday dinners, days at the lake. Moments that once felt warm now felt like lies. I stared at one picture longer than the rest. My daughter was about 8, holding a drawing she made for my dad. He had it pinned to the fridge for months back then. She used to say he was her favorite person. I remember her giggle when he picked her up and called her his little shadow. I shut the album. I couldn't look anymore. Later that night, I opened the photo gallery on my phone. Hundreds of pictures, family trips, holidays, group hugs flashed in front of me. My thumb hovered for a second before I tapped delete. One by one, they disappeared. No backup, no folders saved. I didn't want digital memories of people who had turned their backs on us. Then I sat down with my paperwork. I found the folder that held my will, carefully tucked away. It wasn't just about money or belongings. It was about what kind of message I wanted to leave behind. I crossed out names. I removed every single one of them. My parents, my siblings, all gone from the document. I added only one name, my daughter's. When I finished, I walked into her room. She was reading quietly. I sat beside her and said, "You're all I need. I don't need them anymore." She looked at me, unsure, like she was waiting for me to take it back. But I meant every word. After that night, I stopped replying to texts. I didn't answer calls. I didn't explain myself. I didn't send holiday greetings or check on anyone's birthdays. They didn't deserve updates or second chances. My silence wasn't loud, but it was final. I wasn't angry. I wasn't shouting. I had simply closed a door and locked it. They may not have noticed at first, but eventually they would. My absence would say everything they refused to hear when I was still trying. A few days passed, and I quietly began cutting the last strings. I opened my phone and blocked every number linked to them. My mother, my siblings, even a couple of cousins. No warning, no message, just silence. I didn't want to leave any door open, even by accident. If they had something to say, they'd have to say it to a wall. 3 days later, my sister texted from a different number. All she wrote was, "Hey, is everything okay? You've been acting weird lately." Not a single word about Thanksgiving. No mention of what they'd done to my daughter, as if pretending nothing happened could erase the damage. I stared at the message for a while, then locked my phone and didn't respond. I wasn't going to explain what they already knew. I wasn't going to beg for understanding. They had chosen their silence when it mattered. Now they could live with mine. Slowly, I watched them try to piece together what was happening. My sister called our old neighbour, asking if I'd moved. My mum messaged one of my friends, asking if I was doing okay because I hadn't sent money that month. They were confused, not concerned. Their worry was never about us. It was about losing the things I used to give. At work, I filled out new forms. My emergency contacts had always included my mother and sister. I erased their names without hesitation and wrote in 2 trusted co-workers instead. At my daughter's school, I made the same changes. If anything happened, I didn't want them called. I didn't want them anywhere near us. No matter the reason, life became quieter. But in that quiet, something began to heal. My daughter started leaving her room more often. She came into the kitchen while I cooked, asked me if I wanted to watch a movie. Her smile didn't return all at once, but I saw flickers of it, a softness in her eyes that I hadn't seen in weeks. One evening she laughed, just a small sound while we were watching something silly. I turned to look at her and realized I hadn't heard that laugh since before Thanksgiving. It didn't fix everything, but it reminded me of what mattered most. They could spiral all they wanted, trying to guess why I was gone, but I wasn't going to explain, and I wasn't going back. They didn't deserve access to us anymore. They didn't deserve our voices, our time, or our grief. What they got was the only thing left to give, the silence they had earned. December came and went without a single card from me. No messages, no gifts, nothing. For the first time, I didn't decorate or send out family updates. The usual calls I used to make, checking in on my mother, asking if my sister needed anything, stopped entirely. And with the silence, something strange began to happen. They started reaching out. At first, it was small things. A "hope you're okay" message from a cousin, a missed call from my brother. Then came a group text, sent by my sister, asking if I was coming for New Year's, as if they hadn't erased my daughter from their table just weeks earlier, as if nothing had happened. Then one night, I saw a voicemail from my mother. I almost deleted it without listening, but curiosity won. Her voice was shaky, choked with tears. She said she missed me, said she didn't know what was going on, said things felt quiet without me around. She never said my daughter's name, not once. That was all I needed to hear. Her sadness wasn't about the pain they caused. It was about the absence of someone who used to make everything easier for them. Someone who gave too much, asked too little. It wasn't guilt, it was discomfort. I didn't reply, but I didn't delete the voicemail either. I kept it. A reminder of what regret without responsibility sounds like. A reminder that silence, when chosen for the right reasons, can be stronger than any apology spoken too late. A few weeks later, I made the decision. I contacted a realtor and listed the house. No big announcement, no family meeting, just a quiet, final step. I didn't even tell my closest friend until the "for sale" sign was already in the yard. I was done giving explanations. My daughter came home from school and saw the sign. She looked at me, wide-eyed. "Are we really leaving?" I smiled and said, "We are. Somewhere better. Somewhere new." She didn't ask anything else. She just hugged me. That evening, my sister sent a long message asking if I was okay, if I needed help. My mother called again, this time 4 times in one day. I didn't answer. I didn't owe them that. Their panic didn't come from love. It came from losing control. The truth was clear now. They never thought I'd leave. They never thought I'd stop trying. But they needed me more than I ever needed them. And when they finally noticed the space I left behind, it was already too late. The first morning in our new town felt quiet, but not empty. The boxes were still unpacked, the walls still bare, yet something inside me had shifted. For the first time in years, I felt like I could breathe. There were no expectations waiting for me, no strained conversations, no pretending, just me and my daughter, in a place that belonged entirely to us. We took walks around our new neighborhood, exploring the little shops, the small library, and the quiet park down the road. It didn't matter that we didn't know anyone yet. What mattered was the way she smiled when she found a new bookstore, or the way she laughed when we tried a terrible local pizza place. There was peace in the simple things, peace we hadn't known in a long time. I started noticing small changes in her. She began speaking more openly again, asking questions, showing me sketches she'd been hiding in her notebook. She was healing slowly, in her own way. We both were. The holidays approached, and for the first time, I didn't feel the usual dread. There were no decisions to make about who to visit or what to bring. We decided to stay home. No big meal, no forced smiles, just the 2 of us, cooking something simple and spending the day how we wanted. Thanksgiving morning came quietly. We made pancakes in our pajamas, danced to music in the kitchen, and took a walk after lunch. We didn't dress up. We didn't set a fancy table, but we laughed, we talked, we rested. That evening, as I cleaned up our tiny dinner, my daughter handed me a card she'd made, just a folded sheet of paper with hand-drawn flowers on the front. Inside, in her careful handwriting, it said, "Thank you for choosing me over them." I read the words once, then again. My chest tightened, not with pain, but something gentler, something lighter. She had carried more than I'd ever realized, and somehow, she still found a way to thank me. We sat on the couch and cried together, not because we were broken, but because we were finally putting ourselves back together. There were no words needed in that moment, just the quiet understanding that we had made it through. In that small, quiet evening, I finally understood what family truly meant. Not a house full of people, not shared blood or old traditions. Family was this: loyalty, love, and the courage to protect each other. This was real, and it was enough. A year had passed since the day we left everything behind. Life had become quiet, but in the best way. No guilt-filled phone calls, no late-night texts asking for help, no pretending. I had learned that peace doesn't always arrive loudly. Sometimes it comes softly, like waking up in a place that feels safe. One rainy afternoon, while organizing old paperwork, I opened a drawer I hadn't touched in months. It was full of folded receipts, money I had sent for emergencies, birthdays I paid for, and groceries I'd quietly covered when my sister claimed things were tight, trips I helped fund, bills my mother had said she couldn't manage. Every piece of it stacked neatly, forgotten, but not forgiven. Each one told a story, not of generosity, but of being taken for granted. That night, I sat at the kitchen table and began putting the receipts in order, not out of anger, but clarity. For years, I had given and they had taken. And still, when it came to the one person who should have mattered most to them, my daughter, they had shut the door. I placed the copies in an envelope. No return address, no greeting, just a short note I wrote on plain paper. You once asked me to pick a side. I did. At the bottom, I added one final sentence. There's no space for you anymore. I sealed it, took a quiet walk to the nearest mailbox, and let it go. There was no need for revenge in the traditional sense. I didn't want to scream or fight. This wasn't about winning. It was about finally giving them the weight of what they had ignored. It was about truth. Weeks passed, then months. No reply ever came. No calls, no letters, no unexpected visits, just silence. I don't know if they cried, argued, or felt anything at all, but I imagine them opening that envelope, seeing everything laid out, unable to twist the story this time. There were no lies left to tell themselves. I never sent that letter to be cruel. I sent it so they would understand, really understand, that I was done carrying the burden of people who could look at my child and act like she didn't belong. That door wasn't cracked open. It was locked, sealed, and forgotten. And in that silence that followed, I found something close to closure. Not because they understood, but because it no longer mattered if they ever did. The auditorium buzzed with energy. Students adjusted their caps. Families waved from rows of metal chairs, and cameras flashed from every corner. Names were being called one after another, echoing across the hall as graduates walked across the stage into their futures. I sat in the middle row, hands folded tightly in my lap, watching my daughter from a distance, her head held high, eyes calm, gown flowing around her ankle. She looked so grown, so sure of herself. Around me, families clapped loudly, balloons bounced above chairs, handmade posters covered in glitter and praise waved proudly in the air. I saw grandparents crying, little siblings cheering, entire rows filled with relatives. Our row held only 2 seats, just her and me. When her name was finally called, I stood and clapped until my palms stung. I didn't have a banner or a bouquet. What I had was my presence, unwavering, steady, and earned. She returned to her seat beside me, her diploma in her hand, her cheeks glowing. She didn't look disappointed. She didn't scan the crowd. She didn't ask if anyone else had come. Instead, she leaned toward me, slid her hand into mine, and said quietly, "I only needed you." That was it. A few simple words. But in that moment, they carried more weight than any apology we never received. All the sadness, all the rejection, all the nights I stayed awake wondering if I made the right choice. It faded. It didn't disappear, but it softened. Her voice grounded me in a way nothing else could. We didn't talk about the empty seats. We didn't mention the names that never showed up on the RSVP list. We didn't speak of the people who had made her feel small, unwanted, or invisible. They had chosen not to be part of her story. That absence was theirs to carry now, not ours. After the ceremony, we walked outside into the warm evening light. People hugged and took pictures. We found a quiet spot near the edge of the courtyard, just the 2 of us. She posed for one photo, smiling genuinely, her diploma held with pride. I looked at her and realized she had become everything they failed to see in her. Kind, strong, full of grace. She didn't need a crowd behind her. She had stood tall on her own. The road we had taken hadn't been easy, but it led us here. And in that moment, with her hand still in mine, I took a deep, full breath, not of sadness, not of regret, but of peace. The kind that only comes after walking away from people who never deserved you and choosing to build something better in their absence. The house is quieter now, but not in a lonely way. My daughter is off at college, chasing her dreams with the same quiet determination she's always had. We talk often, late-night calls, shared photos, Random voice notes filled with laughter. She's growing, thriving, and I feel nothing but pride. I spend my days simply. A small garden, long walks, books I never had time to read before. Peace has become a part of my routine, like morning tea or evening light through the windows. I don't miss the noise. I don't miss the pretending. One morning, as I was scrolling through my phone, a Facebook memory popped up. It was an old Thanksgiving photo, one of the last before everything changed. Smiling faces, full plates, and eyes that now feel unfamiliar. I stared at it for a moment, not with sadness, but distance. It was a picture from another life, one I no longer belonged to. I tapped delete memory. Just like that, it was gone. No second thoughts. There's something people don't say often enough. You're allowed to let go, even when it's family, especially when it's family. Love is not an obligation. Respect isn't a given. And ties that suffocate aren't worth preserving. In a world full of people begging for closeness, they were the ones who made room only for themselves. They chose to push us out. I chose to stop knocking. Now I live a life that holds only what matters. Kindness, truth, healing, joy. There's no space for hate here. No space for silence that wounds or smiles that lie. Just space for love, the kind that shows up, stays, and never asks you to shrink to fit. Do you think I was right to delete the memory and leave the past behind? Or should I have opened the door if my family ever came back with real remorse? Let me know what you think in the comments. I'd really love to hear your perspective. And if stories like mine speak to you, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell so you never miss the next one.